demon? Who dares to interrupt my hunt? What is it you seek?
Hissed Catnap at the growling blue giant that was Huggy Wuggy.
I forgot you're non-verbal. You're nothing but a mere animal.
Catnap wasn't sure exactly why he bothered taunting the blue toy. Perhaps to hype himself up? No, he couldn't be afraid. Or was he? Well, he had been warned by the prototype of the ferocious fellow, and the fact they both were chasing after the same toy was just bad luck. But the Bunzo Bunny was just too big, too juicy to ignore. And Catnap was so hungry. All he had eaten these last few months were mere scraps and bones, leftovers from his children. And the prototype only fed him scraps as well. And that was barely enough to keep his children from eating each other. And when he had laid eyes upon the bunny, life had returned to his eyes. But Huggy just had to be there as well. Though Catnap was bigger now, literally and figuratively. While still afraid of Huggy, he was no longer scared of death, but rather the injuries and pain he would receive. The non-verbal toys were more ferocious, more animal-like, after all. As the true predators stared each other down, the bunny toy was shivering in a corner. He was another non-verbal and a loyal follower of Mommy, but she wasn't here to save him again. Or at least, that's what he thought. As the two elephant-sized toys clashed, blue and purple fur sending everywhere, Huggy's teeth tearing through Catnap's flesh, while the cat's claws ripped through the monster's fur, a quiet female voice shouted out for him. Bunzo managed to keep his fear in check long enough to glance over to the voice, where he saw a pink-gloved hand beckoning him from a vent. Mommy was all he thought. His little heart raced as he quickly crawled over, and his little smile was brighter than the sun as he went inside. Meanwhile, Huggy managed to climb on Catnap's back, repeatedly punching him with a soft fur fist, while the cat slammed his hip against the wall in order to throw the blue monster off. Huggy's breathing became labored. He was having a hard time holding on. His fists, while strong, were unable to break the reinforced bones of Catnap, and the lack of claws meant that he couldn't tear through his flesh. But it was when Catnap got out of breath, falling forward onto his knees. He was too hungry. And both toys realized their battle wasn't worth the meal.
Demon, we have exerted more energy than the meal would give us.
Groaned Catnap, his eyes darting around the room.
And it appears prey has slipped us.
Huggy crawled forward. Blood was coming out of his mouth, not because his ribs were cracked, or he had actually managed to tear a hole into Catnap. No, it was just that he bit his own tongue while being slammed into the wall.
I suggest we separate, Demon. Find something else. And that smell.
Catnap went silent. He followed the blue monster's gaze. blood-covered tongue swiping over a silicone maw. Salvia flowed out of Huggy's mouth like a river as he stood up, giving Catnap a difficulty to resist the immediate urge to turn forward.
Demon, listen to my words. If we share, our bellies might be filled today after all tonight.
Through the open wind cover came the smell of meat and the blood, cooked over an open fire. Huggy went on his legs, waited for Catnap to stand. The demon then huddled towards the vent, kneeling next to it, howling, and Catnap understood, chuckling.
Understood, demon. I shall listen for your scream and assist you.
Like a starved dog, Huggy Wuggy crawled into the vent, eyes widened by the thrill of the hunt and the reawoken hope for sustenance. Still, though, Catnap followed the scent regardless, just to get a head start. And not a second too late. As he heard Huggy's desperate cries, as if whatever got Bunzo Bunny was much worse than even himself. Though, together, maybe they could take down the threat. With his heart pounding, Catnap rushed through the empty, broken hallways, the colorful paint peeling off, revealing naked concrete and piping beneath, until he smashed through a metal door with his face, coming to a screeching halt. Before him lay Huggy Wuggy, hand nailed to the floor by what seemed to be a metal pipe. Catnap only had a moment to spare before he too was hit. Out of his shoulder poked a bolt. Grunting, Catnap went on one knee. Normally he could shrug this off, but the fight with Huggy had made him tired. Cautiously, the cat watched into the pale twilight of the room. On the ceiling hung skinned pieces of bloody cloth and colorful fur. A small bonfire had meat hanging on a spit roast. The entire room was covered in fresh blood from processing the corpse of Bunzo Bunny. It seems as if Huggy and Catnap had fought for longer than they thought. And then he finally saw it. Two shining eyes in the corner of the room, in a vague feminine silhouette, carrying something.
I suppose it's not the predators, but the patient hunter who catches the prey today.
The toy in front of Catnap was you. After the hour of joy, you had refused to lie down like so many others, becoming a hunter and skilled survivalist, more for trial and error. The wounds from that scarring your entire body. And as you heard Catnap's voice, you tilted your head. "Ah, talkative one," you mumbled, reloading your weapon. "I'll assume you value your life. And well, I value my ammo. So, let's talk." Staying in the shadows, he watched you stand up, without letting go of your crossbow.
Who are you?
Asked Catnap before you could say anything else. You ground your teeth. "Diana Diamond, from the Little Miss Tiara toy line."
My name is Catnap, from the Smiling Critters. Mostly last survivor of the originals.
Mostly? Her eyes looked him up and down. "I'm proposing a deal, Cat." Catnap nodded. "I know what you're doing. That bolt alone is barely enough to pin you down." This caused Catnap's ears to perk up in surprise, and as if to prove you're right, he stood up on all fours. "Easy, easy there," you said. That's when Catnap noticed the little red laser pointer on your weapon, pointing right at his throat. You held the thing with skillful precision. There was barely any shaking. You probably weren't even breathing right now. He was impressed. We share. All three of us. Then we go our separate ways. Catnap tilted his head, and you grinned, even though he couldn't see it.
I get it, little doll. You want us to stay alive for when you get hungry again.
Admit it, you're thinking the same. Your little partner is too. Huggy snarled, but remained unmoving on the floor. We eat this one. We go our separate ways. And if they cross again, may the better one eat that day. You made an elegant bow as a sign of respect. And as a little treat, I'll even bandage your wounds.
Demon?
Asked Catnap towards Huggy, who looked up and nodded slowly.
Seems we agree, little doll.
Huffing, you stepped forward into the light. You're dressed in colorful, stitched-together fur, a sort of furry ghillie suit, covering your upper half. Hood pulled down so far, Catnap couldn't make out anything on your face. Stepping next to the cat, he lowered his massive body, allowing you to pull the bolt out. The wound you treated with some bandages. They looked old, yet clean. I know what you're thinking, but they're boiled. They should be clean enough. You're a big boy. You can handle this. A huff was all you got in return. Huggy was easier treated, though as you pulled the bolt from his hand, he threw himself against you, pinning you down on the floor, loudly screaming in your face until he calmed down, breathing heavy huffs of rotten air at you. With his hurt hand, he pulled at your hood, and he squeaked. Don't like what you see, big boy, huh? You barked. Disappointed, Catnap tilted his head, trying to get a peek, but grumbling, Huggy climbed off of you, without him actually getting to see how you looked like. Finally, Huggy let you bandage his hand. Following that interaction, the three of you sat down around the fire, the smoke going straight into the vent opening. The reason the two men had smelled the meal so far away. Grabbing a fistful of meaty gruel from a bloody bucket, you threw a chunk of red flesh towards Huggy, who jumped on it like a cat. Kinda ironic, really.
What are you feeding him?
The organs. The meat is for us. Catnap chuckled. The human organs of Bunzo Bunny were borderline inedible. For you and Catnap, yet the feral Huggy Wuggy loved them. They were soft, squishy, and bloody.
Tell me about yourself, doll. How did you survive the hour of joy?
Catnap didn't really care, but it was more to make the wait for the meat to be grilled less boring. You exhaled. Prototype convinced me to participate with one simple trick. He knew I wasn't gonna worship it. Catnap's tail swished around anxiously. He hated blasphemy against his beloved prototype, but the cat made an exception for you. He had already agreed to a ceasefire after all. This little confession just meant that he would be more ruthless the next time he met you. But he promised me to get back at one of the employees. With a sad expression, you looked at your hands. I don't remember who I was before this. They never let me read the file on who I was, and I never found it. But there's this one thing burned into my mind. Dr. Dawson. Your hands turn to fists, and to avoid looking like a maniac, you grab the spit roast handle instead. I remember his face. For all I know, he was just a regular doctor, but in my fucking mind he was worse. Weird and gross. I remember being in a white room with him. His hands on my body. But it was as I was killing him, locked in the showers with him, thanks to the prototype during the hour of joy, when the truth was revealed to me by him. They were just basic physicals, basic examinations they did to all of us. I just misremembered them. As something more due to the fogginess of my mind. I was tricked by the prototype. The man was innocent, or at least as innocent as a Playtime coworker can be. Still evil, just not a monster, and...
You felt remorse?
Yes. I was unable to kill more. But since I was stuck in the shower, well, I survived. You looked up, and that's when Catnap finally saw your face in the fire's light. It was entirely covered by bloody bandages, tufts of blonde hair sticking out from beneath at various places. Your mouth had its left half ripped off and was oozing liquid. It glistened in the light. Your eyes, as ferocious as they first appeared, thanks to the light glow, were dull and lifeless. Noticing that you accidentally revealed yourself, you shrunk back, pulling the hood over your face. My original toy body didn't have a mouth. Needed to tear that open.
I know someone else who has. It's surprisingly common,
said Catnap with a grave tone in his voice. But you just grumbled in response. The two of you remained silent until the meat was done cooking. And when the organ bucket was empty, the bunny devoured fully, leaving only bones. Huggy Wuggy was dozing somewhere in the room, rolled up like a kitty, while you sat lying against Catnap. If I keep myself from moving too much, this should last me for a while. You mumbled, patting your slightly inflated tummy. Catnap huffed. So I'm curious, you said as you rolled on your side to look into his face. Since you read your file, can you tell me how old you were? Catnap had told you he read it during your meal. When you were put under the knife to become a toy, I mean.
So,
You gulped audibly. Truth be told, you didn't know how old you had been at the time. It's now 2004, you said. I kept count with a calendar. So since you were an original from 1990, we have 14 plus 7. You're 21. Kenneth's eyes widened in horror at the number, and he coughed a very thin puff of red gas. What's wrong, big boy?
nothing. I was just never confronted with the true number.
You smiled. Hurts, huh?
All the experiences I never got to have.
Catnap was so loud Huggy awoke, yet he remained there pretending to sleep, listening in. Experiences like what?
School, high school, my first love. Oh, I know I could be married, have a job, Maybe have a child.
Sure, his optimism was a little childish. You couldn't help but give a pained smile. I mean, some experiences you could still have. He tilted his head questioningly.
Like what, little demon? Starvation?
He had started calling you demon after realizing you hated the prototype. Just another blasphemer. But this little alliance was only temporary. Soon the two of you would try and kill each other over for survival. Your first love, I mean. You smiled.
I don't quite follow.
You rolled your eyes. You really were 7 when I turned you into that, huh? You scoffed. You pushed against his massive stomach. Come on, roll on your back. I want to show you something. Curiously, Catnap followed your order. The moment, however, you would harm his body, he'd squish you like a bug. After all, your crossbow was far out of your reach. Climbing onto his chest, you straddled him. He could feel your warm body on him. Catnap tilted his head as you took off your ghillie suit, revealing that beneath all the plush you only wore some very tattered black jeans. Your naked body was covered in cracks and torn off pieces, and yet it was probably one of the most aesthetically pleasing things his brain ever laid eyes upon, awakening long-lost dormant hormones. It was strange. He had seen dolls like you before, of course. He feasted on them after all. Though, with this new context, the fact that half of your body was tightly bandaged up and you were pleasing to the eye.
You seem to be more experienced in this. What do I need to do next?
You leaned forward with a smirk, placing your hands on his chin. Just let me do my thing. You had watched him eat. You knew that he had a mouth with teeth just beneath the speaker he used to talk with. Pressing your half-torn lips against the teeth of his real mouth, you heard him inhale. It was a kiss akin to a horror movie, yet still enjoyable. His tail slapping audibly on the ground behind you. An explosion of emotions he was feeling right now, and after you pulled away to chuckle, he barked at you.
How dare you make me not want to kill you, demon. I want to feel this more.
Then let me give you more, you whispered seductively. Your heart pounding, your body felt so incredibly hot. Sweat was beginning to build up under your bandages. It was then when Huggy stood up, silently crawling forward, eyes focused on your exposed body. You looked behind yourself, glimpsing Huggy's blue fur for only a second. You had your eyes fixed on something else, something more important for what was to come next. And you smiled. Catnap's body was reacting like any other man's body at the sight of an attractive woman. You were about to say something lewd when Catnap noticed Huggy. Angrily, he grabbed his face, shoving the blue monster into the ground. Wait! Both of you, don't fight! There's enough of me for both of you. Huggy screamed angrily, but remained just calm enough to not try and tear Catnap to shreds. You jumped off the cat, pulling down your pants in a way that showed off your rear to both of them. I admit, I never did this. You crossed your arms. To my memory, at least. So, 2 at once for the first time will be, interesting. Especially with your giant bodies and all. You sat down on the ground and spread your legs, smiling lewdly, or, well, as lewdly as you could with your destroyed face. I always wondered how stretchy I am. Let's find out. We have reached the end of the video, and thank you very much for watching until this point. Please remember to like and subscribe, and comment something down below. I read every comment that you write me. But before we say goodbye, I would like to shout out all of my lovely channel members, starting with my lovely stewards. Kathy Misery, Hopeful, Mystic Jade 111, Annabelle A. Contreras, Giovanni Moriarty, Twilight Mia, Angry Boxman, Hella, BitBit, Melofia, and Anonymous Weep. And of course, a big thank you to all of my other channel members. You guys are awesome, and you keep me fed. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a nice one, and goodbye.